And I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So, hey, cheers to everybody in the chat. They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't the take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension and everything and the drama.
How dare! Look at this! How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down with it.
And there's no calm when when you're in the playoff hunt, right, Chris?
There's no calm with the Canucks ever.
That is very true. Even when Pius Suter scores 20 goals and Brock Besser scores 20 goals, it's all about what their next contract's going to be and the drama surrounding that, right?
Mm-hmm. Or if Talkett's coming back.
Yeah, that's true.
But we'll get into that later.
Yeah, we'll dive into that a little bit later. How are you doing, Chris?
I mean, it's been a whirlwind of a week. I am currently in the Yukon. I'm in Whitehorse, of all places.
Are you far enough north where they put the toe in the drink?
I mean, I haven't come across that yet. But I'm happy to report that I found not one but two craft beer centric, like hip places in Whitehorse for me to check out while I'm here during this week. So cheers to that.
Yeah, cheers to that. And you're drinking a Calgary beer up there.
Yeah, and I was actually just saying this to you off the air. The fact that I can find like random breweries all across Western Canada available in liquor stores here is blowing my mind.
Oh, I'm not surprised. There's enough transient like camp workers that go up work like 10 on 5 off type deal that they'll demand it.
Some sales teams deserves a raise.
All right, so yeah, like I said, the Canucks are in a playoff hunt. They are battling the Flames, the Utahs, and the Blues for the last wild card spot in the West, basically fighting over who will most likely face the Winnipeg Jets in the first round of the playoffs.
It's kind of crazy that both the Western and Eastern conferences have like 4 or 5 team log jams leading into the playoffs.
I mean, that's what Bettman wanted, right?
Yeah,
there's more.
He wanted parity, and he got it.
Yeah. Before we dive into that, does that mean let's ask the big elephant in the room question about that? Play-in games, play-in series. Does that do you want that with seeing how close things are?
I mean, as far as just a general like keeping things competitive sort of thing, I'm for it in that regard. I guess it really comes down to like the execution of how well you do that. So if they're able to nail the execution, I think it would be a good thing overall. But obviously, especially in the conservative traditionalist sport that is hockey, there's going to be a decent amount of people that are going to be vocally against that.
Yeah, you're talking to one. I'll be the crotchety old man here. I'll be the conservative and not want the change. It's already 4 fucking rounds. It's like 28 games. Like if you go 7 games, that's a lot. That's more than a quarter of the 82 game season. Like just because the NBA does it doesn't mean that we need it. Just because the MLB does it doesn't mean we need it.
Hold on, I just want to get a quick correction here. Are you talking about a 1-game play-in, or are you talking about an additional series in advance of the playoffs?
Well, I would hate I would hate to see another season where say the 8th team is like 6 points up on the 9th team, and then they lose a 1-game playoff. When the rest of the playoffs is a 7-game series. I like that's, and even if it's a 3 best of 3, then even then it's a 4. We're already doing 4 rounds in probably the toughest, the most grueling playoff in sports.
Okay,
NHL already is the most grueling playoff in sports. And
no
we're going to add to it? No, that's just what makes the first round so awesome is that you have 8 series of hockey, and they're all going on at the same time.
Okay,
right?
So here's a question to your question then. Instead of a play-in, what about the Elliot Friedman thought of expanded playoffs?
It's already 4 fucking rounds of playoffs. 82 games and then 4 rounds of playoffs is enough. We do not need more. I'd argue that we need less games.
Okay.
Maybe
we should have thought about this before we decided to go live, but I'm trying to get clarity here. Okay, so I'm trying to figure this out. Like, is there a way where we can have still 4 rounds, but additional teams? Am I too many beers deep already?
I don't think that just screws up. Having buys and all that, no. The only way I'll agree to an expanded playoffs would be if you shorten the regular season, which they will never do.
How many games would you have to do that? Would it be like 76 instead of 82 then?
I don't know. I haven't thought that deep into it. But
because
honestly,
the reason why I am for expanded playoffs is because when they decided to do a 16-team playoff, there was 30 teams in the league already.
There's actually less than 30 teams.
Okay, which probably proves my point even more.
Still does. It's just because.
But now that we're at 32 and they're still talking expansion, there's got to be a way where they can expand the amount of teams that qualify for the playoffs to accommodate for the fact that the league is that much bigger now.
It's like how many teams?
This is clearly an off-season conversation as far as the
teams are in Major League Baseball, and how many teams actually make the playoffs? How many teams are in the NFL, and how many teams actually make the playoffs?
Well, I think if we were going to do an NFL sort of mimicry, you'd have to have similar divisions and like they do, where it's they're also one-off games. Yeah, they're one-off games and all that. What makes the NHL playoffs so damn good is it's the most grueling playoff in sports. Because it's 4 series of best of 7. Yes, agreed.
Yeah, and giving. And I don't know if giving a full you'd have to, you'd have to do make the round shorter, the first round shorter if you have buys.
Yeah. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, I'm okay with tinkering to try and change it to adapt, but you need to find a way that works best for the most people possible, because obviously you're not going to make everyone happy.
Don't fix what's not broken.
Yeah. I'm okay with that, but at the same time, you also have to adapt with the times. It can't be the same thing forever and ever, even though the league is growing. So, there's got to be a balance point somewhere. But like I said, this is clearly not the conversation to go fully in depth on that.
We will definitely get into on that in the off season, because I have thoughts.
That'll be a July, early August conversation, Sean.
Yeah. All right. But how do you feel about the Canucks' chances in this playoff race, Chris?
I mean, they're in a decent spot. Given everything that the the franchise has gone through this season, whether it's PD struggles, whether it's the Miller drama that came in, I guess, collaboration with those PD struggles, like considering everything on in a whole, I think the Canucks have done half decent as far as maintaining a playoff sort of position at this point in the season. And like when you look at the like remaining schedule compared to the other teams that we're competing against, I'm feeling decently okay about the Canucks right now.
Yeah, I think a bit how they go, how their this road trip goes will basically sink or swim this where they sit in this playoff hunt. Because it's an Eastern road trip. You don't have many easy games. So, and then you've got teams playing in the like they're playing against, like tomorrow against St. Louis, huge. If they can get 2 points out of that, and ideally without giving St. Louis one, that puts them in a really good spot to start that road trip. Because you've got the Blues on Thursday. You've got a matinee versus the Rangers, which will be quite something to watch with the as you were talking about, the PD Miller situation. And then they've got Monday versus the Devils, next Wednesday versus the Islanders, the Jackets, and then the Jets again to end the month of March. And that's the road trip. Like that's a 6-game road trip. And they like the Blues game is not must win, but essentially must win.
Not in the sense of making or breaking. It's more in the sense that you don't want to give a team you're competing that this closely against any chance.
Yeah. And then you've got the Rangers who are struggling, the Devils who are struggling, but both can be good, both can play really well. Islanders are going to be a tough out. Blue Jackets have surprised everyone this year. And then the Jets again. So who are going to come in looking for revenge after that 6-2 win last night by the Canucks. I think they have to get they don't have to, but at least 4 wins on this 6-game road trip would go a long way into helping the Canucks in this playoff hunt, because it's not going to solidify anything with 4 wins, but 4 would go a long way, especially if they can make one of those wins against St. Louis tomorrow night.
Because I know Calgary has a pretty daunting remaining of their schedule. And I think I overheard Elliot on one of the most recent 32 Thoughts talking about that St. Louis is basically in control of their own destiny because they have a relatively easy schedule. And I want to say I've heard kind of similar for Utah. So it really kind of seems like a 3-headed race as far as winnable games between Vancouver, Utah, and St. Louis. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, tomorrow the Flames are in New Jersey. And then Utah is hosting Buffalo. And Vancouver, St. Louis. So, and then on Saturday, let's see here, St. Louis is at home versus Chicago. The Flames are on Long Island, and Utah is hosting Tampa Bay. So, I'm not going to go through them all because that would just be a little bit tedious. But there's just because you've got more quote unquote winnable games doesn't mean anything, honestly. I'm sure Winnipeg thought last night was a winnable game, right?
Fair point.
So I think basically every team has their at this point it's so close. Every team has their own if they win enough games, they're gonna get in, right? So it's yeah, the Flames are in tough. They're struggling to score more than I think all of the other three teams, but they've got Dustin Wolf. I would say he's probably you got Bennington in St. Louis, maybe. Him and they like just the way Dustin Wolf has played this year, he's really kept the Flames in this race. So whether or not he can continue to do that will be something to watch there. So one of the major things that needs to continue for the Canucks to make the playoffs is Elias Pettersson needs to continue the way he's played over the last 8 games. He's a point per game player. Over the last 8 games, he's shown more assertiveness. He's been more relaxed, and you're seeing more of the player that we saw in previous years. Now,
a successful PD is a PD who is playing on instinct and not overthinking the game. Because he's a cerebral player, he can easily overthink things just like I can. I can easily get in my own way by overthinking shit. PD is the exact same way. If you go off of instinct, and especially in PD's case, if he plays off of instinct, he's going to be the player that we all want him to be. And like you said, he's shown that in the past, like half dozen or so games.
Yeah. Yeah, he's last night the line was Höglander, Besser, and Petey with Garland out. It looked good. Höglander's looked really good. He's shown that tenacity that if he can play with that tenacity consistently, get in on the forecheck, that will be huge.
And gave him props, saying that Hoagie has been one of the better forwards the past like 20 games or so.
He has been, yeah, quietly. He has been one of the better intensity and sort of tenacious forwards. Talking players, yeah. And then Talkett did make some comments about Petey leading into last night's game, talking about how Petey needs to reprogram his mind, which is an interesting sort of just verbiage on with reprogramming. I think it's more of about an evolution of Petey's game, because as you said, Petey can be a bit of an overthinker. He needs to play on instinct. He needs to play more assertively on his toes, as opposed to Talkett talked about. He likes to regroup and try and come at the opposition a different way. But sometimes you just need to force the issue, and you're starting to see that from Petey. And I think it's an evolution. You're never going to get that side of Petey out of him, but it's an evolution to finding when it's time to regroup and when it's time to be assertive.
Yeah.
And when you're playing relaxed, and
more close to a balance as you can with that.
When we're playing more relaxed and more instinctual, like he has been over the past just over half dozen games, that'll come more naturally, and we'll see more results as we've seen over the past few games here. So I think that's a really good sign for the Canucks, because the Canucks are getting in the playoffs, it's on the back of Petey. As good as Quinn Hughes has been, he's kept them in the playoff hunt. Quinn Hughes has kept them in the playoff hunt this year. They need Petey going to get them over that hump.
And I'm not trying to maybe unfairly give credit to one player over another, but it's like Quinn threw the team on his back and got them 80% of the way there. They need Petey to get that last 25% to get in. Yeah, exactly. So, seeing Petey play the way he has is fantastic. Seeing how he feels a little bit, you can tell he's more relaxed and feeling less with a lead anvil on his shoulders type deal. So that's been really good. And then with that, the Canucks have
I think the Canucks have sort of found what the identity of this team is. It may not be the identity next year. It may not be the identity 2-3 years from now. But for this specific team in this this season, the identity has gone back to low event hockey. Don't expect the Canucks to outshoot teams.
Also, it took them a damn long while to figure it out too.
I think let's we can get into that a little bit. I think a lot of it was but there was a fissure in the locker room. I didn't believe it for the longest time, but the way this team seems to be coming together and playing with cohesion now basically says
and
everything.
Also some of the I don't want to call them leaks, but just the way some of the players have talked to the press since the Miller trade, it definitely makes you think that, like, do I want to go as far as saying Miller was a cancer in the locker room? Maybe, but it definitely was playing a factor in why they were in a funk for at least 2/3 of the season.
One of Petey and Miller had to go and like I said, I didn't think so. I was defiantly against, but when you look at how this team is, it wasn't a quick switch either. But once they gelled after the trade, I think the other thing is that the players that they brought in, and hopefully Hedl can come back after going through some concussion issues again, unfortunately.
Given his history, I'm not too confident that we'll see much of him until next season, but I'm hoping I'm wrong.
I don't concussions are something that I don't think the average fan, the average media member, the average hockey person who doesn't have any medical, or even if you have medical, they're so weird at times because it can be
they're so individual. There's not a thing that tells you, okay, if A plus B equals C. It's not that simple. There's individual context that each player has with their own concussion history. But based on the fact that Hedl has
every concussion's different too. Every hit to the head is different.
True. And
right?
Maybe it's unfair of me, but the fact that he missed 80% of last season in New York due to concussion related issues, it definitely makes me antsy as far as how much we're going to see of him.
I think you can question it, but it's just one of those things. Especially with this Canucks, the way the Canucks talk about medical and injury, we're not going to know.
Yeah.
Unless they know for sure he's out for the rest of the season, we're not going to know. Even then, who knows, right? But yeah, every concussion is different. It's not even every player and person is different when they get it, which is also true, but every concussion is different. So the one thing that makes me a little bit hopeful is the way he went off the ice. I think he was more frustrated than anything else. He knew he had to go off because he knew he needed to take care of his head, and he was more frustrated than anything else. So but I also know that the day after can be more of a tell than anything else. So he just needs to take the time off that he needs and go from there. But yeah, the Hedl, O'Connor, Marcus Pettersson, even Mancini, and even D. Petey, bringing him up. They've injected a bit of a different energy into this team, which has also helped, I think, in terms of figuring out what this team is and their identity and how they play the game.
The turnaround as far as the D-core has been pretty impressive from how it started this season to where they're at now. Unfortunately,
I don't think the D-core was as bad as people made it out to be. The problem was that they were defending for too long. They'd be fine, and then they would get tired. And then that's when the mistakes would happen, and that's when the goals would happen.
I'll let the rest of the podcast group kind of get more into like the technical details of it all, but I kind of view, I guess, the game more at like a surface eye test level. And for me, it definitely it felt like the D just didn't gel this season in comparison to other seasons. And just with it seems like how much more proficient the D core has been since acquiring Pettersson and Mancini. Like, I just feel like it whatever this new mix changed from the old mix appears to be working better, and I'm just grateful.
And defense is a lot more of a team game than we really talk. If when you look at when you look at how the team has changed, they've tried. At the beginning of the season, they were trying to open things up a little bit and be a little more offensive, which they gave up a lot of odd man opportunities because of that. Players were forcing things a bit too much, so they've dialed that back, which I think is a smart move for this. And then bringing in Marcus Pettersson, I think, helped also just sort of steady things out, especially on the second pair, whatever that second pair looks like, whether Quinn is Hughes and Myers on one pair and Pettersson and Ronick, or if it's Ronick and Hughes on the first pair and Pettersson and Myers on the second pair, whatever that mix is, because we've seen that happen depending on who's been healthy. It really feels like he's calmed things down in a way. I think I know everyone talks about how that, like, and I was a big fan of Zadorov and his gregarious attitude and everything, but I think that the defenseman that the Canucks missed the most from last season was Ian Cole. He had the same sort of calming influence on that blue line and on the defense as the team defense as a whole.
It's just like that defensive balance, like that constant blood pressure that doesn't valley or spike. Yeah.
It's the predictability, and I think that was big part of why the Canucks were struggling to begin the season, was that they did, especially defensively, they just didn't trust each other to know where they were going to be on the ice. So, and I think we're starting to see that come back, because that was one of the biggest reasons why the Canucks were so successful last year, was the predictability and the players knowing where and trusting where their teammates were going to be on the ice. And I think
outside of Ian Cole in the Oiler series, but that's a whole other topic.
I mean, he was just, everything went wrong for Ian Cole in that series.
I know that's more just me poking fun than actually having a criticism.
And then the other thing that the Canucks need to, like, against Chicago, it looked really good. Against Winnipeg, it looked really good. Was the forecheck, and that's going to be, outside of Petey being Petey, the Canucks forecheck being tenacious and smart is going to be the key to the Canucks' success going forwards this season, and even going into any future seasons, especially under Rick Tocchet.
Yeah, it's a Tocchet type system. Tocchet was known as an aggressive forechecker, and his team is going to be an aggressive forechecker.
Yeah. And that's what he wants that's what he's been trying to drill into players like Höglander and DeBrusk for that a little bit as well, because you've got, especially when let's look at the line from last night: Petey, Besser, and Höglander. Höglander is the tenacious F1 forechecker. Then you've got the other two coming in after, right? And they're the more skill. They've got a little bit more skill. Höglander's got some skill, but they've got a little bit more skill and the ability to put the puck in the net.
The classic comparison for our generation is Hoagie is Burrows, and the other two players are the Sedins.
I mean, if you want to put a label on it, but yeah, I think I want to see that line get a run here, because that they looked fantastic against the Jets. And again, that you've got the forechecker and Höglander, you've got Petey and Besser, who both can shoot and both can pass, and Höglander is just when he's on his game, he's such a tenacious player, and he can get under the skin of the other team, and it's fantastic. That's the type of game you need from Hoglander. And if he can do that, then you might have a built-in, I wouldn't say true top six winger, but one of those borderline guys that every team needs to step up and be like the third piece on a line.
Yeah. Maybe Burrows isn't a great comparison, but maybe more like a Yannick Hansen at the top of Yannick Hansen's game.
No, I was going to say more like a Yannick Hansen. Yeah, that's really what you want from Hoglander. So, I think it's, if you look at those ones, if you look at the Canucks, the way the Canucks blue line and defensive game has gelled, if they can have that assertive, tenacious but smart forecheck, if the Canucks make the playoffs, I know last night they won 6-2. We're feeling good, but in a 7-game series, well, let's see. Like Canucks lost 5-1 in January to the Jets. They won 6-2 last night, and they play them at the end of March. If the Canucks are able to get into the playoffs, do you think they match up well against the Jets?
Well, we also have to bring in the context of this current iteration post-trade deadline of the Canucks.
Yeah.
If the current Canuck iteration can repeat what they did last night, this table is made of wood. Knock on wood. I feel like the Canucks have a decent chance at giving a likely first-round matchup with the Jets a hell of a run.
Yeah. The games will not be as high scoring as those last two. I think there'll be a little bit.
Yeah, it's not going to be 5-1, 6-2 all the entire series. No.
But if the Canucks can keep it close, they have a chance. They've got Petey, they've got Besser, they've got as game breakers, Quinn Hughes game breaker. I think a lot again. Another sort of wild card in that all that would be the health of Thatcher Demko, because as good as Lankinen is, we know that Demko's got another level when he's healthy.
He's healthy, and I'm not sure we're going to see that this season.
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I don't know. We heard, I guess Kevin Woodley was on Winnipeg Sports Talk today saying that we might see Demko play a game on this road trip. So we don't know. We have no idea what to expect with Demko. Again, that's why it's a wild card.
And we might see him back, but who knows how long that might last.
Chris, stop being doom and gloom.
No, I'm being real. This is pragmatic, Chris.
All I'm saying is if I have said if. I don't need the qualifier of I don't think it's going to happen.
I'm just saying I don't know how long. I have hope that we'll see him. I just don't know how durable he is when he's back.
I think that last one was just pure unlucky bullshit more than anything else.
And you very well might be right. All I'm trying to say is with this season, there's no prediction.
I just hate it. We hear so much doom and gloom around this fucking team from the media and the fans and all this shit. I'm so done with it.
I agree. This market is unnecessarily negative, and we do our best to counteract that. But at the same time, I'm not going to be unrealistically hopeful either. Yeah,
I'm not holding my breath either. That's why I said if, and that he's a wild card.
Yeah. And so I'm 95% in agreement with you. I'm just saying we don't know how long it might last if/when he comes back.
Yeah, that's kind of why I said if and wild card. All right.
We're dancing circles around the same topic.
Yeah. With that in mind, we talked about this a little bit, the youthful injection that the Canucks have gotten on the blue line. DPDs look fantastic. Oh, can I just put that hit that he laid on Nazem Kadri on repeat? That was just
Also, the fact that the Canucks traded away Carson Soucy because of how much confidence they have in DPD.
Yep. And the other thing with DPD
Who
is
would have
they're
predicted
not
that
afraid,
in the last offseason?
they
Very
aren't
little.
afraid to put him on the right side either, and he hasn't looked bad. That's what, like, you look at that. You got Mancini, who's looked solid. He hasn't. I don't think he's looked as good as DPD, but he still looked good, and he still looks solid. He's a good sort of bottom pair option on the right side for the Canucks. Then
Like,
you've
Sean,
also-
let's go back 9 months, back to Youngstars. You and I were
Yeah.
both impressed by him in Penticton. Would either of us have predicted this? Probably not.
I wanted them to slow play him and let him marinate, because this is his first professional season in North America. He played some games then in Sweden, which is a different style of game. But man, I feel like he's just one of those guys who just he's big. He's already pretty physically mature for how old he is, and he plays calm. Like, I don't want, like, you put the Burrows label on the line talk earlier, but the guy that I keep seeing out of DPD is Matthias Olin.
Ooh,
And if, like, just
I like that comparison.
cool, calm, not afraid to be physical, but doesn't chase the hits. Because that's the biggest thing about DPD, how he's been since he's been called up here, is that he's had some big hits, but he doesn't chase them. He knows that he has to wait. The hits have to come to him. He has to play good, solid defense, and the hits will come to him, and they are. And it's just, that's, like, I like, in our, I've mentioned our intro a few times already this time, but, like, Devin saying he wants to gush about watching Chris Tanev play live. Like, for where DPD is at in his career, he stepped up huge, and he's, as someone who grew up playing defense and just thinks that defense gets overshadowed and overshadowed. Good defense gets overshadowed, and mistakes on the blue line get overanalyzed. Like, just the way he plays, it gives me a lot of hope for what this blue line could look like going forwards, because they're gonna, on that, like, next year, like, Derek Forbort is a UFA next after this season. I don't know if they'll bring him back, because you could have a left side of Hughes, Marcus Pettersson, and DPD. What's going to be interesting is we get into, you've got Mancini, you've got Tyler Myers and Ronick locked up as well, but you also have Tom Willander coming too.
Yeah, let's be honest. It's going to be a Mancini versus Willander as far as who fills that sixth spot.
Most likely, and how they pair players up is going to be interesting too, because you've got those three young guys.
Yeah,
like, you've got DPD and Mancini, who are big. Yeah, you've got those two who have some NHL experience. Willander, depending on how Boston College or Boston University's on.
I want to say it's BU.
Yeah, I think it's BU. But depending on how far they go in the NCAA playoffs, I'm not, and where the Canucks are in their playoff race, I'm not sure how much ice time Willander will get with the Canucks this year. But having those three, plus you throw in Quinn Hughes, you've got Ronick locked up long term, you've got Marcus Pettersson locked up long term, like, or medium term. You've got a good mix of veterans and youth to build that blue line around for at least the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I was going to say years to come. Like, we're not talking like 1 or 2. We're talking like 3 to 5.
Yeah. So it's going to be, but even if you want to marinate Willander too, and have him play maybe like a half season in Abbotsford.
I mean, to a certain degree, that's kind of
Um,
what happened with DP this season. He hasn't been a
Yeah, it's
regular.
just yeah, but you and then have him step up a little bit later, and maybe you still bring in a one more veteran, because I think even with those, like, you're still gonna want a veteran sort of a veteran 7-8 defenseman who can of the ilk of a Derek Forbort
So
or
are you ultimately saying bye-bye, Juleson?
at this point, yeah. Why, like, I
Speaking of chasing kids.
He's been a serviceable 6, 7, 8 defenseman for the Canucks, but with these kids coming up, let alone Kirill Kudryavtsev, he's looked good down in Abbotsford. Because going back to when we went to the Young Stars in Penticton, it was DPD and Kudryavtsev as a pair that both really impressed me. So you throw that in there. Then you've got Sorminio coming out of junior. I don't know if it's this upcoming season or the season after.
I want to say it's
Um,
this upcoming one.
Yeah, but even then, you've got those two, bring in those two. Like, they've got pieces that can. I haven't been this positive about the Canucks blue line and its future in a long time. Like, we talked ourselves into the Keto Hiroses and the
Christian Volanins.
Christian Milanins and the, was it last year the Canucks had why am I drawing a blank on his name?
McWard?
Yeah, McWard. They kept trying him on Quinn Hughes's on Quinn Hughes's pair through all
Training
of preseason, hoping that he would be the solution. We talked ourselves into, even as much as I like both these guys, Troy Stetcher and Ben Hutton, who just didn't quite turn out to be the players that we were hoping. Still, I guess, serviceable 6-7 defensemen on top teams, but still not.
I mean, look at Ben Hutton. He's a cup winner now.
Yeah, he was a 6-7 defenseman on Vegas for that. Like, it's not. I'm not trying to knock him too much.
Yeah. I get what you mean. Yeah.
Like, I feel it. Villander's got top 4 potential. We now seeing what DPD can be. Like, even if he is at most a 4 or 5 guy, that's still serviceable for the Canucks. And they've got the top end with Hughes, Ronick, and Marcus Pettersson right now as well. So,
yeah.
And then Tyler Myers, who much maligned Tyler Myers, who just, I don't think people appreciate him as much. He's just someone who just, sometimes he's just too damn big for his own good and gets called for penalties because of it.
Chaos Giraffe will chaos giraffe. He can't help the fact that he's a giraffe, man.
But yeah, so I'm super excited where the Canucks are. The Canucks blue line is set right now, as well as the future of it. So we'll see what happens. Not even just this year, but going into next year and the year after. Because, as I said, you've got Minio and Kudryavtsev, who don't have any NHL games, but also both look pretty solid. So,
do you think these guys are going to be closer to NHL guys and less more like a Guillaume Brisebois type?
It's still up for debate. I think I would say Kudryavtsev's has a definitely a bit more of an upside. He's got his lateral skating was what really impressed me when we watched him live in Penticton. Yeah, he was up against a bunch of younger players, but like, you could tell that his lateral skating was solid. And he's looked really good in his first pro season with Abbotsford this year too, because he's a rookie in the AHL, and he's putting up a decent amount of points for a defenseman in that situation, because he's only 20 years old, so, or maybe turned 21 now, but yeah, it's a first year pro, and you're putting up, let's see here. Sorry about this, folks. He's got 24 points in 53 games as a he just turned 21 in February. So that's I just like the way he skates. And I think that he's going to be. I don't know if he'll ever break through on this team with the way the Canucks are, as we talked about. You've got, especially on the left side, you've got, because he's a left shot guy, you've got DPD, you've got Marcus Pettersson, and then you've got Hughes. It's going to be tough to break in there, and then the right side's just almost as jam-packed now, especially once you throw in Willander, because they were switching DPD and Kudryavtsev on sides in Penticton, trying to see if they're able to do that.
Yeah.
So, but like he's only 21. Like a lot of defensemen don't make the NHL until they're 20.
They marinate in the A until they're like you were just about to say 24, 25.
23, 24, maybe even 25. Yeah, is when you see them actually pop up and start doing that. So, and even again, progress isn't always linear, so there could be a step back from DPD, but we'll see. But having those options, I think, is what makes me feel a little bit more comfortable where the Canucks are and positive where the Canucks are on the blue line, not only this season but going forwards. So.
And I guess the counterpoint that I want to kind of touch on with that, though, is the success that they've gotten with the defense group post-trade deadline now ultimately came at the forward depth, the cost of the forward depth. Like having to give away a guy of Miller's skill level, that's a sizable gap in their forwards. Because remember the conversations we were having going into this season about how happy we were with forward depth for the Canucks? There was basically 12 guys that you can interchange it into whatever pairing and whatever line you want. And now looking at that forward group, they need two guys to be maybe not a cup contender, but a powerhouse playoff team.
What they need is either Hedl to step up and be a true number 2 center, or they need to go out and find one.
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing the Canucks need to find. They need to make a decision on Brock.
What do you give up to get something like that?
I know that's
Are you giving away future firsts?
Most likely, you're giving up draft capital if you're going to go the trade route.
Especially if you don't want to give up a Willander or those sort of prospects.
Yeah, that's the other part. Is Karamaki needs to step up and be a top six player for the Canucks, because if they can have, and they need to make a decision. They need to make a decision on Brock Besser. I think they should find a way to. They need to find a way to keep him, because I think that losing him could be similar to losing Markstrom, Tanev, Toffoli.
What was the rumored last package? 8 by 5?
That's the thing. I think Besser wants that as long a term deal as possible, but I don't know. To be honest, I haven't been paying a lot of attention to all that, because I find it just
endless speculation. I totally get that.
Yeah. So I just find it annoying, because it's until it happens, and even with the best reporters, they can get it wrong, and even with the best reporters, they can miss a detail, right?
Yeah.
And so it's that's the thing. It's if they lose Besser, they need to replace him, as well as get a true number 2 center. The thing with Hedl is that when he's on, his ability to drive through the neutral zone and get into the offensive zone,
which is something the Canucks need.
Yeah, is really good. But his ability to create offense consistently once in the offensive zone is where things fall off. If you could have a third line of Garland, Hedel and Joshua, and then you can build another second line as well as that Petey, Höglander, and Besser first line. Then you're like you got what DeBrusk, and then DeBrusk, Lekaramecki, and then a true number 2 center is what I think is an ideal world of what you would be looking at.
And I mean, with the cap going up as significant as it is over the next 2 or 3 years, can you afford to probably give Besser maybe like it in a way to get that deal across the line? Like, can you give him a 9x5 or a 8.5x6 or something like that to get it across the finish line? Like, I think there's room to take a gamble there. So that way you're not trying to get a top 6 winger and a second line center.
Yeah. Because as much as we like Pius Suter and his versatility, his ability to play center, his ability to play wing, you've got a built-in quote-unquote third line already. You've got Bluger as your fourth line center, as well as Atu Ratu and Max Sasson, who are both pushing for more time. Let alone Linus Karlsson, who the Canucks just re-upped for another year, who looked really solid against Winnipeg last night too.
On a one-way, if I recall.
Yeah, one way, but that's I think a lot of people look at those one ways as if it's NHL or bust for players. It's not actually. If
it just
anything,
means he gets the inflated AHL contract.
It does, but it also helps keep him from being claimed on waivers.
Oh, because most AHL teams that would claim him, or most NHL teams that would claim him, wouldn't claim him because of how much they'd have to pay him in the A.
Oh, because just if he goes there and doesn't make their team or doesn't, and they have to waive him, they wouldn't want him on that. Yeah, necessarily on a one-way contract with that. So, but yeah, I think it's not. I think that's and he's earned it. I think he's the leading goal scorer for Abbotsford since they moved to Abbotsford. And he's one of those guys who I don't know if he's a quad A player or can take that next step and become a true NHLer. But we'll see. I think he looked good last night, and if he can play like that consistently, he will be a fourth line option for the Canucks next year. But you've got him, you've got Max Sasson, you've got Atu Ratu, all pushing for pushing up the lineup. Let alone you've got Kiefer Sherwood, who's looked, man, that pass he made to set up the goal last night was fantastic. Woo! off of a really nice forecheck as well. And that's why they brought Kiefer Sherwood in, is he's an absolute pain in the ass to play against, and is not shy at all about throwing his body around. the NHL hits leader by a fucking mile.
And broke the Canucks franchise record, halfway through the season?
Yeah. So I think when you look at what the Canucks need, and they need to raise the floor on their middle six and specifically the second line of the players that they're icing. And that's like they've got a number one line with best, however they put that together, whether it's DeBrusk, Besser, and Petey, or it's Höglander, Besser, and Petey, or it's Höglander, Petey, and DeBrusk. They've got a first line, and then they've got like 2 third lines and a fourth line. What they need is a true number 2 line. When they had last year, were able to run out, Petey and Miller. Even when Petey wasn't quite hit Petey, it was you still had a proper top 6.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had the third line, and then you had a fourth line. So with the Canucks, the Canucks defensive depth has and sort of shape and everything has come together. Yes, they had to move Miller out to help facilitate that, but also they rejigged the chemistry in this team, and so we talked about earlier as well. And that was another reason why. And sometimes you just need the right pieces to fit in the right spots. And hope. That's why I said if you either need Hedel to step up and become a true number 2 center, which I think he has the ability. He has the ability to do that if he can stay healthy.
Mhm.
Or you need to go out and find that, and it has to be a step above where Hedel is currently, and it has to be a step above where Pius Suter is. As much as I know Kevin's a big fan of Pius Suter. I saw Donnie Jolly had had their daily poll of who the Canucks should prioritize signing, whether it's Suter or Besser, and like it to me, like anyone saying Pius Suter is missing the boat based off of just understanding team makeup. In my opinion, they need to raise the level of that second line, and Pius Suter doesn't do that. As good as he is, he doesn't do that.
Yeah, he's an excellent Swiss Army knife that you can plug in on any line for a temporary measure. He's like the perfect piece if that's what you need him to be. Yeah. But yeah, he's not a replacement second line center.
No, or even a winger. Honestly, like he's perfectly fit in that third line role, and the Canucks already have basically a third line set.
His play is pricing him out of his role.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah. Especially if you want it.
Is that talking quote? Ka-ching.
Yeah, if the Canucks do want to take that little extra step and get Besser signed, even if it costs a little bit more money for shorter term, if they can get him signed to a 4 or 5 year deal, that's probably ideal. Even if it is a little bit more, that comes out of everyone else's what they can do with everything else. So
yeah, the money that you are currently paying Suter / what you might give Suter to stay, take it from the Suter pile, put it into the Besser pile, and then promote from within. Yep, that's probably the most realistic way of going about that.
Yeah. And then the Canucks also signed a goalie out of college that they drafted a few years ago, Aku Koskenvuo. Man, Rick Dollywell's gonna have fun time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm glad you attempted it, not me.
Just adds to the Canucks goaltending depth. Like they've got Tolopilo and Shilovs and as depth pieces right now. And this fully healthy.
Young. He's a promising young guy too.
Yeah, Ty Young's looked solid as well. So yeah, just continuing to add to that. And then the other big news that came out of this week in terms of signings and no signings and all that stuff is that it sounds like Rick Tocchet is not going to be negotiating his next contract until the season is over. He can't. I think he basically said he's all in on making sure that the team is making sure that the Canucks get into the playoffs, and he makes the team better right now, and he'll
essentially pulling a Marner.
I mean, and that's fair. Honestly, just focus. Like, there's no need to.
It's a betting on yourself sort of mentality.
It is, but I also think it's also just like we can bet like it. We can hash this out after the season's done, and we'll go from there. Like, it doesn't like how quickly do these UFA deals happen when July 1st hits? Like, you can bang out a contract.
Yeah, the biggest negative of it not being done right now is because the media is impatient. That's all it is.
Yeah, exactly. Like the media and the market is impatient and wants, they also want it's also a talking point, right? Right, and the Canucks market is so addicted to drama, so addicted to going over with a fine-tooth comb any contract potential contract issue That they just they can't help themselves.
Like, I don't think this is exaggeration at this point anymore. The Vancouver market is as bad as how we used to complain about Toronto.
Oh, it's worse.
I mean, I'm not necessarily, I'd say worse, but it's definitely on par.
Yeah. So it's, but yeah, yeah. I don't blame Taka for wanting to just focus on it. So I think it's a smart move. Like Brindamore did that with Carolina. Look, where's Brindamore right now? He's with Carolina. Like,
yeah. As long as Talk doesn't want to go back to TNT, I am happy with him waiting till the offseason, just as long as he stays.
Yeah, to be honest, could he not come back? Yes, there's always that potentiality, but there's no reason to worry about this out right now, especially if the Canucks can repeat what they did against Chicago and repeat what they did against Winnipeg, and start winning some games and get into the playoffs and start gelling as a team again. I don't see why he wouldn't want to.
Yeah, I don't think his experience being.
If the drama had continued, then maybe he would want to go. Yeah. But if they can gel as a team and start feeling like a family again, then he's not going to want to go.
Yeah, I was going to say, if I don't think there's been, like, there's been some bumps in the road, but I don't think there's been enough negativity that he is of the opinion that he's like, no, I'm not coming back. And also with the open question mark of how the rest of this season plays out, if it goes positively, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't want to come back.
Agreed. All right, Chris. Is there anything else with the Canucks that we missed?
Canucks related? I think we about covered it. I honestly can't think of anything else.
All right. So let's just do one last question. We already covered the playoff and potential playoff changes at the beginning of the podcast. So don't use that as your answer for this. But if you can make one rule change in the NHL, what would you do?
Based off of how the Four Nation faceoff went and it expanded overtime period to minimize the potential of a shootout is where I would go. I'm not sure.
That's exactly where I'd have gone too.
Yeah, I'm not sure the PA will agree to 10 minutes, but that's where I'd lean.
Yeah, I think Friedman was sharing some would put some tweets.
Yeah, he
out
was
today
saying like 7.5 or 8, something like that.
Yeah,
or somewhere in that 7 to 8 range.
Mm-hmm. So I want to see it extended. It just makes so much more sense. And we got Dylan saying the 3-2-2-1 point system. I think we need to rethink that. I'm not against changing the point system, but I don't know if 3-2-1 does what people think it would. On paper, yes, but I think once the strategy that comes into things, I just don't know if it would. I think there might be some
okay. So I guess my question to your point then would be like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, because you're more of the EPL guy than I am. That's the point system that the EPL uses, right?
Well, there's no like overtime.
Fair.
It's 3 wins. It's 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw.
Okay. Like, yeah. So what do you think is like people's hope for the 3-2-1 system versus what you think is realistically what it could end up being? Because this isn't something I've dived into, so I'm kind of curious what your more in-depth thought on that is.
I think early in the season, teams wouldn't be playing as much for the win. Near the end, they'll still take the 2 points. They wouldn't want to give up 3 points, and they'll mitigate that way. So I think it'll get rid of some of the excitement near the end of the regulation. Is my guess. Once it comes to this time of year when you
So you're basically saying the 2 points would become what the 1 point currently is.
Yeah. Well, no, the three they would be playing for the 2 points because they would want to mitigate losing.
The OTL becomes what the 2 points would become. Yeah.
And then if you have, I just look at that and I think that there still would be some conservative play near the end of regulation as opposed to once you get into overtime, that you go for it because you want that extra point, but it's just basically I don't think it changes much in overtime. And I think it actually makes things more conservative for the most part in regulation. Once you get near the end of the regular season and the math starts coming into play, then you might start seeing some more pushing for you might even see empty nets depending on what the math is for that. But I don't know. I think just for the most part, I don't think it would actually change enough for me to be okay with that change. But again, I'm willing to have a discussion about it, and I'm willing to
are you willing for it to be an AHL rule so that way they can kind of quote unquote experiment with it before they implement it?
I think that makes sense. Yeah. I'm much more receptive to this as opposed to expanded playoffs.
I mean, I like the idea in concept. It's just a matter of figuring out the intricacies. And all I've ever heard is just vague concept ideas, not like this is how we'd actually pull it off. So I'm intrigued by it, but I need to hear more. Yeah.
And yes, the PWHL does use the 3-2-1 point system, but it's such a small league. And it's a shorter season. So you see every game it is worth a fuck ton more as opposed to an 82 game season. Like in October, November, December, you're going to see, I think you would see more teams play, even if you lose a point, they'll play to make sure that they get the points as opposed to playing hard to get the 3 points and then giving up a goal and losing and losing 3 points, especially in divisional games and playoff and potential playoff games. When it comes down to you need the 3 points to even have a chance, you'll see things open up. But I think for the most part, I don't think it actually will change much.
And I guess to go back to my initial answer, are you pro 10 minutes or are you more in that 7-8 range?
I'm pro 10 minutes because I don't think I think most of them wouldn't even reach 10 minutes.
That and like with the current more conservative, like, okay, let's reset and go back. Like I feel like they're going to have the energy to pull a 10-minute overtime off.
Yeah. No, I think 10 minutes is, for me, like, I'll add on to it. I want to see 10-minute 3-on-3 overtime, and if it's not done by then, call it a tie. Bring back ties.
No one wants to kiss their sibling, Sean.
Shootouts are shit, man. I hate shootouts. They're a gimmick. They're not even just. It'd be like settling basketball with a free throw shooting contest. It'd be like settling baseball ties with a home run derby.
To me, I would say they're equally unpleasant. I think I would rather something where there's a defined winner as opposed to a tie. Is where I fall.
Ties are fine, man. Ties are fine.
Agree to disagree, but I think that's probably a good place to leave this.
All right, how do we follow you, Chris?
You can follow me on most social media sites at Schneids, SCHNEIDZ.
And back to your EPL thing there, Chris. There's ties there. You can follow me, Beardy Canucks 03 on the X Machine. You can follow Kevin, Kevole, on I think all the social medias. Tyler is T Noble, TNOBLE on the X Machine. You can follow Devin, Gord's dad, on Instagram. But again, he's so hit and miss on it. But you can if you want. You can follow us, Shifts and Pucks, at the X Machine, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your support. We will see you next time. Bye for now.